Welcome back to the BFF podcast. I'm Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus, and here with me is my co-host.
It's me, Vic from Sailor Vic. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Hi.
Ann.
Hi. What are we going to talk about today?
We're gonna talk about support system.
What? How did that come about? What?
My gosh. Okay. So, we were thinking about this topic. I think your parents had recently visited, and so lovely. Like, I don't know. I have a soft spot for family. Family is like, it gets me every time. So, I loved meeting your parents, and I think they're like super sweet. And I think it was the first time they came and were able to see what you've been working on and feel the shoes. And honestly, your parents are really experienced, and they're kind of in the industry, so they could recognize quality when they see it. And it just made me, it filled my heart to see how proud they were, holding up your pieces. And so I don't know, this just sparked a whole thing, and I was like, Ann, we need to talk about support system and all the people in our lives that help us through this lonely journey.
Shout out Vicky, thank you. You're my biggest support system, but
you're mine too. We support each other.
Okay.
It's another one of those sappy episodes.
Literally, it is. God, there's so much to unpack with the family. Asian parents. I mean, you and I have talked about this in previous episodes where, growing up, we just weren't ever recognized for the art that we do or the art that we did. Because it's always expected that, we'll grow out of it. It's just a hobby. It's just for fun.
It's not a viable career.
It's not a real thing, And so I think when you witnessed my parents in the studio with me was also the first time I witnessed my parents, in the studio with me, but then also I think it was the first time I'd actually clicked with them what it is that I actually do, which is really bizarre to think about because I've been in business for over 2 years now. And again, I started my business during the pandemic, and so they reside overseas. So this was the first time that they were able to actually see what I do physically in person. And I think, yes, they've seen photos, they've seen things that I've shared with them, but never in person in the space where I create the work that I create. Have they actually seen it, And so I think it was with you, and I'm so glad that I was able to share that with you because you're my sis,
Yes.
And so
all day, every day.
It's just for them to actually hold one of the shoes that I created in person and watching it click with them is they finally understood what it is that I do and what it is that I've been trying to pursue. And I, like you said, they're very, I think it's just not just them. I think it's just all Asian parents are very hard to please. And regardless of the fact that they're in the industry, manufacturing, they're just hard to please, so they see things that you present to them, at least their offsprings, you know, presents to them very differently than if they were to look at somebody else's, you know? And so for them to actually have something nice to say out loud. Again, they're lovely people, and I'm actually talking about them as if they're so mean to me when they're not, but they're just Asian parents. You know what I mean?
They don't know how to express, and they don't boast. It's not you hear things oh, your parents are only going to say good things about you. People that love you regardless if everybody hates you as your parents. And they only have good things to say. That's not how it is for Asian parents.
No.
It's frowned upon to be boasting about your child and saying how good my child is. Oh my God, look at my child. It's usually yeah, they're okay. This is fine.
Because it's their passive aggressive way of I don't want to tell them how great they are, even though I know how great they are. But if I tell them how great they are, they will no longer have the motivation to pursue for better.
Yes, it jinxes them or it spoils them in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So it's so the whole psyche thing is very effed up.
I'm so glad that you're
know?
like confirming this, because when your parents were in here, like your mom was saying like, oh, like 不简单, like in Chinese, like this is not easy, or like this is like really well done, you know. I don't know why I spoke Chinese. I've never spoken Chinese.
So cute.
Anyways, but I was like, oh my God, yes, she's incredible. And like for your mom to just say that, I think that's how I analyzed it subconsciously, is that, oh, like to hear that a parent is like super supportive and like just super like proud and appreciative of the work that you do is like so heartwarming to me. And it, you know, makes me so happy, because you do amazing work. And it's like not a lot of people get to see in person and really pick up something and like see how intricate everything is and how complex it is. But you managed to like come up with this idea and then execute it, you know? So it's like such a special moment.
It is. And I know, like, I'm trying to like, I guess, share this experience with our listeners in a way that I really hope will make sense to other people other than us, right? Because you and I are both Asian female who grew up in an Asian household. And like, I'm 40 years old, you know? And so like, even like, I'm a grown ass woman, you know? And I think I'm very comfortable. I told you, I've always been like the black sheep of the family, you know, and I'm very comfortable just kind of rebelling against like everything that's been asked of me growing up, as far as like my Asian culture and tradition goes. But I would be lying if I were to say that I don't care about what my parents think, you know, because yes, at the end of the day, like we all want our parents' approval, at least as an Asian child, you know? And even if they're not approving, like, I just need you to be on board and be accepting of this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, I think like over the last like 5 years, 10 years, like they've really just like have embraced like who I am as a person and learning how to trust me as a person and as a professional. And because they know like they just cannot influence me in any way. Like I'm very like I'm just very hard-headed, you know?
Like, tell me what to do and I'll run in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've always like had a very strong conviction of doing things in like my own way. But again, like, you know, having their support and having them recognize like what I'm actively pursuing in my life at this point in my career has been like really awesome. Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And that's our toxic trait, is we try to be good daughters at the end of the day, right? So
yo, listen,
it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Wait, Vicky, I want to hear about. Can you tell us about your experience with your mother recently? That's sort of like what happened and how has it revealed itself to you in a way that has been very positive?
It's so weird. So when I first started sharing like a little bit more of my personal journey online, I always said, you know, like my parents, like we always say, our parents are Asian. They don't understand or they don't encourage us to go down an artistic route, you know? And that's always been the narrative that I've put forth. And I didn't realize that maybe that came across as, oh, your parents don't support you, or your parents don't love you, or your parents like are like give me the cold shoulder when I share with them anything. And that's simply not the truth. It's just that they don't understand the potential in what I'm trying to do, right? So it took a lot of patience in explaining that to your parents, you know? I think a lot of times it's like if somebody doesn't quite understand what you're doing, they might give you comments that, again, my personality is, if you don't like what I'm saying, sometimes I'll be like, well, I don't want to share it with you anymore. Or you say something that, you know, I think shows me that you don't care, then it's like, okay, well, I'll keep it to myself. That's fine, you know? And so I feel like that was the point before. And then when I started explaining to my parents more like what I do on the day to day, you know, what are some like fun projects that I get to work on, accomplishments or struggles that I have, then it makes them more interested in like knowing, because at the end of the day, they're my parents. I'm far from home. They want to know what their daughter's up to, you know? And so more recently, you know, especially my mom, she like watches everything. She like watches all of my Instagram videos. She knows how many views I get, you know?
Oh,
like I did like every single project that I do, she's like updated on the stats, you know. And then she will call me and ask me like, oh, how's that doing? Like, have you shipped it out yet? Has the person received it yet? You know, and she's like a lot more engaged with the whole process. And I think that's like been a turning point. And
wait,
you know,
but what clicked for her? Like, why do you think suddenly she's like more involved?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think it's like opening up and like having that conversation more regularly. Like, I think I can say this for both of our parents, but even though they don't praise us in front of our faces, they love to talk to their friends about what their kids do, right? It's like, oh, my kid does this. Oh, yeah, well, my kid does this, you know? And so giving them that kind of like topic of conversation is quite nice, because then they get to share it with their friends. Like, oh, like my daughter made this shoe for this person or worked on this project. And like, this is what it looks like. Here's a picture she can send to her family and friends. And I'm not sure what the switch is for her, but I do think it's a gradual change. And just me being able to share more things with her. And also, you know, I have a family friend. So he's actually my dad's friend. He's super, when it comes to support system, I feel like he deserves a shout out. We call him Uncle Rock. And he is like, since the beginning of my journey when nobody really cared or supported what I did, he would call me every time. Like every time I posted a YouTube video, he would call me. Every time I got a big project, he would call me. Like, when he found
so does
out,
he follow you?
He follows. He on Instagram? He's like, his wife is on Instagram.
Okay.
So like, Auntie Rock is on Instagram, and she likes everything as well, you know. And I remember, I think back in the day, it was like eBay project. He would call me up and he would just be like, you know, just so you know, I'm super proud of you for everything that you've done. He has a daughter who is in like the cinematography, like movie making, producing field. And so he understands. Mm-hmm. Because everybody else doesn't understand. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how can you not be related to me, but you still take the time to show up, to call me, to support me? And I think I've like had phone conversations with him where I've like cried because of what he said. But like honestly, from day one till now, he still calls me every now and then. He's like super proud. He's like, oh, like last year, oh, like your shoes are in a museum. Like, I'm going to go buy tickets so that I can go and see your shoes. And he's like, I'm not going until your shoes are on display. And I'm like, you're so sweet. Like, so I think he constantly talks to my mom as well. And he kind of gives her like the inside of like, you need to support your kids. Like, not that you don't support your kids, but like words of affirmation.
Yes.
Right? Because kids these days don't take then you know what Asian parents do. They kind of tell you the negative, hoping that you're going to flip it around and turn it into motivation. Like, so he tells her, like, that's not how it is. You need to support your kids. You need to know what they're doing. You need to tell them they're doing a good job, you know, and just be there as their support system when they need you. So I think that both of those things really, like, have changed and has gotten a lot better.
So what does having that kind of support means to you, like from family?
I think it puts me more at ease. It's like a double-edged sword type thing. It puts me more at ease, but then it also makes me want it more, because I think there's a certain, you know, like, I don't want to disappoint, or not disappoint, but like I just want to push further, because having that support system makes me feel a lot safer to be like, now I can pursue more. Now I can take bigger risks. Now I can do more things, because people are starting to see and appreciate that what I do is worth chasing, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Has that changed for you also?
What do you mean? What way?
Like just knowing that your parents can like appreciate what you're doing and they know, like, does that do anything for you? Because then again, you, like you said, you're like the black sheep, so your mind is set. You know exactly where you're going.
I was just gonna say, like, it doesn't really change anything for me. If anything, it's just a nice to have. It's a bonus. It's nice to have. And I'm not saying that because I'm ungrateful of their support. But I think it's like, it sounds really effed up, to be honest, like, to say this out loud, but like, I'm like used to not having like my family's support, you know, because I've always just had my own, like, my, like, things I want to pursue, and things I want to achieve. I don't often ask for permission, you know. It's like, this is what I want to do. I believe I can do it. I'm going to try to do it, and I'm just going to do it. And so I think seeking for other people's support, and like, my poor husband have to deal with this all the time. Sorry, husband. But like,
shout out.
Like, yeah, but it's like, sometimes it puts a damper on my relationships, to be honest with you, because I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. I'm just going to do it, you know? And
for decisions that are entirely your own to make, you know?
Right. But I think this is maybe, you know, relevant to what you were talking about, your mom, where maybe it's easier for them to get on board if they knew more of what's going on. Yeah. But I just haven't taken the time to loop them in because, 1, I don't have the bandwidth, or 2, I'm too lazy, or 3, I'm just so focused on what I'm doing. You know?
It's mainly that. Yeah. Like, you want to put all of your effort into making something happen before you even talk about it. Because it's like, let me just get there. Let me get there. And then when I get the chance, then we can talk about it and I can share it with you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Can we talk about, like, okay, so we talked about family, right? Mm-hmm. And how important that is to us and what that means to us. But, like, what about people outside of our family? Like friends or people in our community. Like, what does that look like in your everyday, like in your presence online? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, let's touch on that first. I feel like presence online, like our community, you know, people that have supported us from day one. Literally, like, recently put out a post with my collaboration with Fruit Loops, and everybody that came through that you didn't have to, you know, that came and left a comment, left a like, left a DM, you know, I feel like those are things that keep us going, you know, and like, no matter how big or small, a like or a comment or any kind of engagement with us online is a form of support that I appreciate so much, you know. And so to this day, I feel like we put as much effort as possible to respond to every single comment, you know, and that's why we do it. It can be time consuming for a post that, you know, has a lot of engagement. But it's so important to me because I feel like you guys are the people that allow us to do what we do, you know, and that's so huge and it's so special. And, you know, I always say, like, our community is super supportive, for one. I seldom get negative comments. And even when something negative comes up, our community supports us in a way. So, for example, like you were telling me the other day, when people repost your work and they don't tag the artist, somebody in the comments will literally be like, by the way, this was done by Studio Duskus. Like, without you even having to speak.
I know, so many times.
Like, is so big because at the end of the day, it's like, we're so caught up in our own lives sometimes that it's like, where do these people have this free time to offer this small act of kindness that is so big for us, you know? And it's like, I want to be part of a community like that. I don't want to be part of a toxic community, which, you know, our community is totally not that. And yeah, it's like, these are the people that lift us up. These are the people that when we have a hard time justifying what we do, and the amount of time that it takes us to do it, these are the people that make us feel like we are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I go back and reframe what you said real quick? So you're like, I mean, you were saying, you know, when do these people have the time, the free time to go out of their way to do something so nice for us, right? And I think, I don't think they have the free time.
No.
But they make the time
Absolutely.
to go out of their way for us, which is like so incredible. And I think, you know, we have a lot of peers doing similar things that we do. And, you know, you and I have been very blessed with a good following of people, a good number of community members. But it's like, how did our community become what it is today, right? Because if we're trying to kind of dissect how, like, what does this like support system in our community means to us, and how can somebody else who is doing what we do, who may not necessarily have the same type of support system, like how can they also achieve what we've been received from our community, right? Like what, again, like earlier you mentioned like staying actively engaged with our community is huge, right? Like, so responding to DMs, responding to comments, and like not just with an emoji, but like really taking the time to like have a conversation.
Yeah.
So like, what else can we do? Like to continue building this community for ourselves, but also help other people that are trying to build these communities for them, so they can feel supported in continuing to do what they're doing. You know.
I mean, do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I think like we're still trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think at a minimum it's like, and again, like I don't know how people who have more than the followers that I have, because honestly, like I don't even feel like I have a big following, but it's like how I'm already feeling overwhelmed with the type of like just, you know, people reaching out to me, like number of people that are reaching out, and like, but again, it's like like I always have to tell myself, like you were saying earlier, it's like they have taken the time out of their busy day to leave you a comment, you know, and these are not the people who took time out of their busy day to leave you a negative comment. So like, how are you going to respond to make sure this continues to flow?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like really making a conscious effort, and not be lazy about it. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're trying that as well. We constantly have this like conversation of like, how do we return the favor to our greatest support system, you know? And even in the projects that we are working on right now, we try to incorporate that, you know? Like, how do we engage the community? How do we give back? How do we do things that, you know, might benefit someone else that doesn't have the same opportunities that we do, or is not in the same position right now as we are? How do we give them sort of our time, and how do we give them that space to grow or resources to use, you know? So I think a lot of it comes down to like listening to what people are asking for as well in DMs, right? If they're like, hey, we want you to do more of this, then it's like, okay, well, we'll put more time into creating that type of content. We will go into, you know, like answering more questions, or like, you know, with even you, like creating sort of like an educational content that's like teaching people how to do certain things, or like you have skills that you can share, you know? So I think that's like a huge part of it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a tough one, because I think like for us, like we always think about too, like, okay, how do we further deepen the relationships that we have with our peers? And I think a low-hanging fruit, it's always like, okay, we can do a collab, right? With somebody that we see eye to eye with a similar style, with, you know, the same level of professionalism, and sort of leverage each other to build a bigger community. But yeah, I mean, having a support system, like, Vicky, I don't know, like, if I could have gotten this far with my social media career if it wasn't for the people in my community. Honestly, like, greater than the support that I've gotten from my family, if I'm being real right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes family won't have time. And it's not because, they don't care or whatever. They just don't have time to engage the same way as these people who don't necessarily have that kind of relationship with us. Yeah. But they, post after post after post, show up and they're there and they're leaving these comments and they're engaging. It's almost like, sometimes you have to tell people, like, I have to tell my brother, hey, Kev, can you go and like and comment on my post, please? Because I desperately need it. I used to say that to him, and it's like, but like, we never had to ask that of these people, and they just do it out of the goodness of their heart. And I feel like the one thing we can really do is to provide like quality content. Like, put everything that we have into sharing these things with them. I think that's like the best thing, because you never know. Sometimes I watch content and it helps me, right? Like, in certain ways, like, whether I'm working or whether I needed a pick-me-up, there's content out there that just gives you that little bit of motivation you didn't even know you needed. And so, like, putting that forward, I feel like is quite important too.
For sure. And also, I just have to say, and I feel terrible, hi, listeners who's been like super loyal to our podcast. For those of you who has been leaving comments on our podcast like episodes, we are sorry that we have not responded very actively to most of them. We promise we will be more on top of it. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that is a promise. That is a promise. But also, thank you guys for, like, there are people that have watched every single episode, that have listened to every single episode.
I feel awful. I so appreciate them.
So, and, like, just things like that. Like, Ann, have you ever thought that you would, like, go online and people would actually want to listen to what you have to say or what you're doing? Like,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Okay, Vicky, can we please talk about kind of the ugly side of support system?
This is where the
I mean, it doesn't have to be that juicy, but it's like, it's as simple, because I feel like all of us have that in our lives, and I think it's important for you and I to talk about it, because so far we've only talked about people that have supported us. But can we touch on, like, do you have anybody in your life, whether or not it's your family or your friends, who is kind of questioning what you're doing? Yeah. And how does that make you feel?
Interesting. Okay, so I think I know what we're getting at. So yes, definitely there is. I guess it's, again, like, expectations for things. Like, for example, when I'm like, oh, family members don't necessarily comment on every single one of your posts. That's a false expectation that I've put on certain people, because I don't necessarily expect that. I understand everybody is busy in their own lives, but there are people that are certainly close to you that you feel like should act a certain way or should understand you. For example, I think I have a couple of friends who are like this. When I started this journey, because, again, if you didn't already know, my background is not in art. My background is in science, and I actually have a bit of experience in science, and I should, like, my path was to go down that to find a career in science. However, when I did my pivot to art, financially that doesn't make sense, and of course, right away, a lot of people would be like, are you sure you want to do that? Or they'll be like, yeah, I think it's great for you. Great. Go and pursue being an artist or doing, content creation online. Like, good for you, and it's like kind of just surface level. And what I'm getting at is, like, in friends and family, there's, like, different types of support that you receive. And throughout the years, sometimes there are highs and lows. And in, like, one of the more recent sort of events that I've told you about is, like, one of my friends who's supported me, like, this entire time, finally came up to me and was like, hey, like we should go on vacation. we should do this, or expectations like, oh, like we're buying a house. When are you buying a house? You should be buying a house. Like, you know, I'm turning 33 this year, and actually a lot of my peers around me have gotten married, have a house, have kids, you know, their life is established. They have savings and stuff. And I'm still here financially in limbo. And, you know, I started getting these like weird messages of like, hey, like we kind of expect you to be here, but you're not. And I can't commit to anything because right now I'm prioritizing my business. And there's just a lot of reinvestment of income that I have to put into it. And I have to sacrifice a lot of things, right? Or maybe not sacrifice, but prioritize my business over a lot of things. And it just goes to show that at the end of the day, like, you just have to be clear, you know, which direction you're going in, and not be affected by these, like, expecting people to support you, or people who supported you and then suddenly don't support you, like not being affected by it so much. And I feel like at this point in my life, I'm pretty self-righteous about what is good for me and what isn't good for me. And so when I hear these comments, automatically I'm just like, okay, well, you obviously don't understand my struggles and you can't appreciate, you know, how much I've put into this. And so that's your opinion and that's fine, you know? So it's like, that for me is one of the things that's like, when your support system kind of fluctuates a little bit.
Yeah, does that bum you out?
It did. And I think it did, but also I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I'm cool supporting myself, you know? Yeah. And I feel very happy doing what I'm doing. And so I can't be touched, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so you know how, like, we always talk about, like, when, like, on social, right? Like, on a post, for example, we'll have, like, 100 people that loved what you did. Mm-hmm. And there's that one person that, like, is, like, crapping on what you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Our internet trolls.
And you and I have gotten better at this, but, like, for that second, like, it really bothers you. Like, you're really upset by it, right? And that one person overwhelms all the positivity from the 100%.
It's like 99% positive and 1% negative.
Right. Yeah. And so I feel like that's the same thing with our support system, right? Like, your family, most of your friends support you, but then there's that one or two friends that are just like, how did you go from, like, supporting me to not making me feel like you don't really understand what I'm doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That really bums me out. But then, like, it overwhelms you because you're like, I thought we were better friends than this, you know? And so, but I'm glad, like, you're sort of, like, letting that, like, pass you by, you know, and not let it linger for too long.
And I think it like, has a lot to do with the lesson that I also learned with, like, my parents. Where personality-wise, if you show that you don't care, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell you anything, you know? However, I think that you still have to assess, like, whether this person is willing to take the time to understand your situation. You know, because sometimes there are these times when it's off comments. But then the second you dive a little bit deeper, like, maybe, you know, I could say something that's very insensitive to somebody else because I don't understand their job. And I don't understand their struggles and what they're doing and what they've had to overcome to do something like that.
Yeah.
But taking the time to understand, like, oh, this was actually very difficult for them. They've been struggling for a very long time, and they're finally getting to a place where they feel a little bit better. I think you still have to assess, like, is that person important enough to you for you to explain, like, hey, you know, like, this like hurt me in this way because I thought that, you know, you were my friend, or, you know, you were such a huge part of my support system, and I, for some reason, felt that there was a lack in that, you know? And so it's, like, really dependent on whether I care enough about this person to be like, do I want to explain to you? Do I still want to, like, to preserve that relationship? Or is it something that I'm just like, you know what? whether you support me or not, I'm still going to be doing my thing. And so it's cool for you to have your opinion, So it really depends on that. But again, at the end of the day, everybody has to deal with their own stuff in their life, their own crap that's going on, that I'm like not so quick to judge. Because then I'd be like honestly, I would cut everyone off. And I have at the beginning, because people don't understand what this is. They're just like, well, you're just not making any money. You're pursuing art, you're not making any money. And so, I feel like for people who deserve an explanation, will get an explanation. But for people who don't, then I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I've got other people.
Oh my gosh, you're so much nicer than me, Vicky.
No, I think it's like to preserve sanity.
It's like, for me, self-preservation is number one.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem cutting people out. In fact, I have.
As you should.
A lot.
But as you should. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm too old for this.
No, you just have no room for negativity. And I think that's fair as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Woo.
Man.
Woo.
There's so much.
Oh my goodness.
So much. Yeah. But I mean, support system as well. I wanted to let's bring it up a notch a little bit. Also just to give our significant others a shout out, because I think we talked about this a lot as well. This journey is so tough. There's a lot financially we have to deal with. There's a lot in terms of our time and our efforts and even our bandwidth, our mental capacity to deal with it. I think we're I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm definitely a sensitive person in this stage. Because I feel like I'm trying to make it. It's like I'm climbing this mountain, and any false movement, and I'm scared that I'm gonna fall down. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when we interact with people around us, there is this they're kind of stepping on eggshells, because we could be reactive. We could be you don't understand us. We're already doing our best. We're already doing everything we can. We're so tired and burnt out from the efforts that we're putting into it, that sometimes we're not the most not reasonable, but we're not capable of being more insightful. We kind of just react on words. And I think that that's happened to me a lot, where I'm just butt hurt by a comment.
Yeah.
And it's how could you say that to me? You don't understand anything. You don't do whatever, without being thoughtful. And so just honestly, a shout out to my significant other who has put up with that, put up with, a financial burden in our lives, and just nonstop, supported in everything. Moose came and set up this whole podcast thing.
He did.
When he didn't need to, So, so just to touch on that a little bit.
We love Moose. Shout out Moose.
Shout out
Thank
to
you.
Moose.
Yes, love him. He's the best.
Yeah.
So is my husband.
Yes. And I feel that's the same thing. We don't realize, because we're so obsessed with our own business and making it work. We're working on filling our cup before we can spread the love, So.
Girl, so much. Oh my God, 2023. What is going on, people?
Oh gosh.
I
think our camera just shut
It's
off.
okay. We'll just keep going.
Okay.
I mean, we're almost done. We're running out of time. But all that is to say, having a support system is so important. And I know, Vicky and I, you and I always talk about, not always talk about, maybe off record, but on the side or in previous podcast episodes where we've talked about how lonely this journey can be. And I know a lot of our peers listen to our podcast and they share the same struggles. And we just want you to know that you are not alone, and that we are here to support you. I know we're not always very good at responding to your comments on our podcast episodes, but we promise we will be better at that. So please, if watching or listening to this episode gives you any kind of feel, drop us a comment, and hopefully we can be of support to you as well.
Yeah. And we honestly, we see everything. We're doing our best, and like, you know, just there's only so much time, but we'll get to everything. We'll get around to everything.
So
yeah,
you guys keep killing it. Keep doing it.
we wouldn't be here without you. For sure.
Absolutely. So, but yes, that is all the time that we have for today.
And my biggest support system is right here. Yeah.
Love you. We're like about to like go into the corner and cry after this. But anyways, if you like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, give us a rating. It really helps other people find this podcast. Until next time.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.